The newest H&M store on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan is the company's largest ever and just one of many new stores it's planning around the country.
It's all part of a high street revolution, fast fashion.
Instead of 2 seasons a year, we practically have 52 seasons a year. So we have something new coming in every week. And fast fashion has created this so that it can essentially shift more product.
You can get this fringe metallic skirt for $39 at Joe Fresh, a brand new store in town.
With price tags that might look a little bit more appealing to budget-conscious shoppers.
American consumers, they really have grasped the fashion part of H&M. And we know from before that American consumers are very value-oriented. If you match these two together with fashion and value, then you have a recipe.
One Japanese clothing retailer is making a fast and furious march here in the U.S.
The price has dropped. The way of making that product has completely changed. And you have to ask yourself at some point, where does it end?
The global marketplace is someplace where we export work to have happen in whatever conditions we want, and then the products come back to me cheap enough to throw away without thinking about it.
I was looking at various metrics for sustainable agriculture in the fruit and vegetable industry, and I started coming across these numbers about how much was being wasted. And here we were trying to get farmers to be just a little bit more efficient with their water, just a little bit more efficient with their fertilizer use, and yet, on the other hand, 40% of the food was not actually being eaten. And I just thought, how is nobody talking about this?
So 40% of everything raised or grown is not, in fact, eaten. And then globally, about 1/3 of all the food produced is not consumed.
It's very scattered throughout the system, and it makes it hard to point a finger, and it also makes it hard to see.
If we're wasting 1/3 of the world's food supply, and we need to increase food availability where it's needed, cutting food waste is one really quite simple place to start.
Tomorrow we start living off discarded food. So tonight, for our last supper, we're having all you can eat. It's appropriate to eat here because it says wasted food subject to extra charge. Okay, so anything expired or already wasted.
Yeah. Where are we gonna go?
Oh my goodness, if I forget my lunch, do I have to go like dumpster diving on my lunch break? That's not cool.
You won't forget your lunch.
Like, I've been homeless since I was 12, 13.
People who you were staying with start to get tired of you, so you gotta rotate now. After a while, your feet get tired, man. You should be moving. You don't get no sleep at all.
I don't have any undergarments, I don't have any clothes, I don't have toothbrush, toothpaste, I can't go to school. Like, is this like the life that I'm gonna live for the rest of my life? I got put out here on some bogus type shit, but I can't be out here like this. I gotta get better for myself.
It's like really nerve-wracking. Like that moment that you don't know what's on the other side, and you just hope for the best.
They are really skillful at hiding what's wrong or what's missing.
I was just still trying to make it and break through, but how you gonna change it? How you gonna make your story better? How you gonna write the next chapter of your life?
San Francisco has a goal of zero waste by 2020. We're a good part of the way there, but we're still landfilling over 400,000 tons a year. This is where most of San Francisco's trash comes. Nothing like the smell of garbage, huh? We've cut our landfilling in half since the year 2000, and we're at the lowest level of landfill on record in San Francisco that I can find. Our records go back to the early 70s. But the future would be, it's empty. We want to try to keep everything out of the landfill, no incineration, reduce, reuse, recycle, compost, everything. Can we get all the way to zero? Well, that remains to be seen, but we're going to go as far as we can.
We're starting our senior year as ER doctors.
I had heard this was a very difficult place to train.
It's one of the most challenging places to work.
The gap between thinking and acting is minimal. There is so little tolerance for mistakes.
This isn't very good. What happened?
During Code Black, it feels like the place is gonna blow up at the seams. I knew being a doctor anywhere else was not gonna cut it.
I knew that my life had to mean something.
My dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. I wanted to have the ability to help somebody who needed it.
It scares the hell out of you, and it makes you have to work hard, and there's no excuse.
Part of what we're trying to figure out is who we are.
The people in the emergency room were just different.
I really don't work out that much.
You're seeing people usually in the worst day of their life, helping them cope with that moment. I don't expect that to ever get easy.
It really is just about doing the right thing for somebody.
This is worth saving. This is an antique mirror that probably used to be in that house. See?
Wait a minute. This is my friend Derek Evans. He'd been telling me about Turkey Creek for a dozen years before I finally went with him to record his family history.
I've been here a long time. I always wanted to stay on Turkey Creek. I love Turkey Creek.
Alligators. I ain't worried about no alligators. See, this is where I learned how to swim, among the alligators. And the snakes.
My great-grandfather's grandfather founded this community on this land.
But our conversations about the past kept shifting to the present.
Everywhere they can push a little dirt back and pour a little concrete, they're putting something in there now.
I've always had it in the back of my head that somehow, someday, I would tell this story. If I'm not careful, if Turkey Creek is not careful, it may be like an obituary.
As they were chasing me, I was trying to make it out as quickly as I could. I was unaware that there were several coming from the other direction. And as I get to the end of the alley and I can see them coming, I froze. I literally froze.
I turned and I saw that the rest of the people that I was with were kicking somebody on the ground.
They started punching me first, then kicking me as hard as they could in order to get me down to the ground.
I saw that he was still moving, and I said something to the effect of, "What's wrong with you guys? You know, don't you know how to put a boot in?"
I remember looking into that face. I remember looking at that mohawk and those eyes.
I kicked him in the forehead, and he was out.
In those last moments of looking up and watching these 14 guys with razor blades glued to the front of their boots, high-fiving each other, and they were congratulating each other. They believed with everything that was within them that they had accomplished the goal of killing that kid in the alley who had never spoken to them, had never said anything to them. The words and what I saw were far more painful throughout my life than the boots and the blades.
And we turned up the music, and we drove back to the suburbs. I will tell you, it was a long drive.
The most ambitious river restoration project ever proposed in the U.S. is slated to begin in 2020 on the Klamath River, which originates in Oregon and flows through California to the Pacific. In a historic settlement, tribes, farmers, commercial fishermen, and the owner of the Klamath Dams have all signed off on the billion-dollar project. But one significant hurdle remains. It's now up to Congress to give the project final approval to move forward. With no fish passage at all, the 4 Klamath Dams annihilated the 3rd most productive salmon fishery in the lower 48 and caused toxic algae blooms in the reservoirs that have wreaked havoc on water quality.
Like all constructed things, dams have a finite lifetime. I mean, that's not time to pull out every dam in the country. That would be economically foolish. But it would be just as foolish not to rethink every dam in the country and try and decide which are the ones that actually still make sense in the 21st century, and which are those that we can get more value, both economically, culturally, aesthetically, morally, and ecologically out of a river system by sending it partway back to the state that it was in naturally. The history of thinking in the Western world is radical ideas eventually can become conventional. And a couple decades ago, it was radical in terms of thinking that you could take a dam out. It was unthinkable. Go back 50 years, it was legitimately crazy talk. The conversation's changed.